we're going to hear from Kathleen O Hearn from the State Policy Network. Kathleen deserves a lot of credit. She has put together this effort initially. She got people who are in the CON movement talking about this initially and getting together and creating a platform for some dialogue. What we're doing here today is simply expanding on an idea that she started with. And so Kathleen is the Senior Director of Policy Advancement at the State Policy Network. She connects coalition partners. She's a connector. That's what I like to view myself as well, a connector. And she's been various places. She has connections in the past with the Mercatus Center. She's been a staff assistant on Capitol Hill. She's worked for the Texas Public Policy Foundation. So she's been in this arena for a while, and she today is going to share with us the efforts at working together and coalitions. So Kathleen, please come on up here and share with us what you'd like to have us take away from this today. Kathleen O Hearn.
Thank you, Hal. And thanks to Docs for Patient Care. I think this conference is a huge first step in the collaboration that needs to happen on this issue to really remove con laws in all 50 states. I mean, even if you just look around this room, we have state groups, we have national groups, like the Galen Center, Heritage, Mercatus, who have put together, just so much good work on this issue. And you have also doctors, which is essential for this. So I'm so happy to be here today. So fancy here. So why collaborate? I boiled it down to four main things. First, there's a real need to turn up the echo chamber. This is especially important for con because there's not a lot of knowledge about what con is. But also for any issue, right, you have to get people involved in caring about the issue before you can have any legislative action. And one way to do that is messaging, and I'm going to tell a little later. Second is that there's a pretty formidable foe when you talk about, advancing this at the state level. That's hospitals. I mean, how many people are working in their states and face the hospitals on this issue? Like everybody, right? And the big thing about hospitals is, behind unions, they're probably one of the biggest spenders when it comes to state level initiatives. And in the South, where you see con laws, where you saw Thomas's map, it's even more so, right? They're probably the biggest. So, and they come with, the claims of people are going to die, we're going to shut down hospitals, right? These are scary, big things that we have to address. Second, there are several states facing the same issue. And anytime you see a lot of states facing an issue that, for the most part, I mean, we saw the data, right, that these laws are very outdated. I mean, when you have Barack Obama's administration even saying these laws are outdated and not effective, you're onto something. So there's a real opportunity for states to band together and talk about why there's a need to remove these across the board in the United States. And also, there's just a high need for education on the issue. When you say con to most people, they think maybe you're talking about Star Trek 2, which is the best of all the Star Trek movies. Or, maybe it's a con man, not anything to do with medical industry. So there's a high level of education needed, and the people in this room are really the people to do that. So one other thing that I think is really important as we talk about this echo chamber and the high need for education is, what is the message? So when we're talking about collaboration efforts, what is the message we're all getting behind? And one of the things State Policy Network did, gosh, it was probably about a year and a half ago. It was in December of 2015, and several people in this room, I think, were there. If you were there, we did a 2.5-day session talking about the messaging and went through a whole process to talk about, what is our audience, who needs to hear this message, what are some of the common objections we're hearing, and we really developed a framework, and I have a whole PowerPoint deck on that I'm not going to share today because we don't have time, but if anybody wants that, I can definitely share it. Who was there? Naomi and Jim, you were there. Sal was there. So yeah, we spent a grueling 2.5 days, hopefully in a way to bring a better message out on this issue. So one of the big things is like the big overarching message that we came up with is that you have to protect patients over profits, right? When you go to the heart of this issue, you see so much that it's really about competition. It's really about letting those competitor veto other competitors out. It's not about patients. If it was, as we saw with Dr. Stratman's data, states would remove these laws. And some of the messaging we came up with is that con laws, they deny access to care, especially for the most vulnerable. That story about the pregnant woman losing her child because she didn't have access to a proper NICU, that story needs to be told, because you think about that woman and your heart goes out to her. Lawmakers need to hear that story. In a lot of ways, you're denying a community to invest in the best technology. If you're somebody, I live in Virginia, right? I want access to the best technology in my state. And whether I'm one of those people who need a sonogram, but there's not allowed to have them, I want to have access to that. And I think everybody would say that. So that's a message that really resonates with people. Also, causing needless pain and suffering at the worst time. And your story about that pregnant woman is the right story to highlight that point. So there's a whole host of negative message around negative effects of con laws that we can message around. But it goes all over to protecting patients, right? And then the flip side of that, right? You talk about what con reform will provide, right? That we have to put patients first above everything. And that everybody, especially the most vulnerable, can have access to the care they deserve. And that the best technology is in the community, our community, right? We have access to the best, most cutting edge technology that the community will support. And right, people can focus on everyday life, not just, where they're going to go to, maybe they have an elderly parent that needs taken care of, but a nursing home is 3 hours away because of con laws, right? That puts a very big burden on everyday life for people. So basically what I want to conclude on is I think there's a huge opportunity for people in this room to not only, it's so easy to come to one of these conferences and say, yeah, we're going to do it, right? But there is going to have to be a coordinated effort. On the state level, I know many of the state think tanks are really driving this issue in their states, but it's going to require national partners like the Mercatus Center, who's done so much great work, doctors, right? Hearing from ambulatory surgery centers, which I know John Locke Foundation has done a lot of partnering on the ground with. So it really takes creating that echo chamber and having that message that everybody's rallying around. So that's mostly what I had to say. I want to keep it short and sweet because I think most people are this way. But I would challenge you today to really think what your piece in this is and how you can advance this and play a role in advancing this on the state level, because it will take a lot of coordination effort, because we are up against a very formidable foe who does not want to lose any market share. So that's it, unless there's questions or other comments.
Any questions or comments? Ori?
The foe of hospitals affecting legislation and protecting the turf and things like that, it is an extremely formidable foe, and we experienced that in Texas in the last month when we had physicians and physician legislators bring up a bill against maintenance of board certification, which is a completely different racket. But the hospitals were utilized by the board system lobbyists for misinformation, and the hospital lobby proved extremely formidable.
Right.
I mean, they flip votes in committees behind the scenes. They know the system, and they understand it in and out, and their lobbyists were in the gallery in the Texas legislature. They basically camped out there.
Yes. So my brother is one of those lobbyists in Texas. So sorry about that. at Thanksgiving, we're not allowed to talk about this via our mother.
We did win, by the way. The
Good,
governor
yeah,
signed it into law yesterday.
yeah.
So,
And to me, that's so much about, yeah, congratulations to you, because they are very powerful. And I think the big thing there, it is like, right, like they have a vested interest, and everybody knows it. It is really bringing out the community, bringing out docs, but people like on docs or patient care who are on the side of like, no, this is, look at their profits, like look at their claims. I know there's been a lot of good work by the Goldwater Institute on even taking hospitals' claims on uncompensated care, and how a lot of times there's a lot baked into that that's just not, it's kind of fudging the numbers a little bit. So I think what we can do in those situations, like when there is a Texas situation, it's kind of an all hands on deck. How do we get the message out? How do we have calls into like a governor from another state who did this and be like, look, we didn't have any hospitals closed because of this. They made these claims to us too, and what we're seeing is actually X. And, even so much, I'm so thankful to the Mercatus Center and all the data they've done, because it really just stops a lot of these arguments in their tracks. And I think there's an emotional side that we have to all this too. Like the hospitals take, I don't know, how many of you saw the ad in Virginia that ran that was like, people are going to die? Oh, you're gonna show it this afternoon? Okay, great. And they took it down like within a few days because everybody was like, really? But there is like a counteroffer, and I think we can also take that, like, you are putting profits over patients, right? You actually, there's no data that supports patients are dying because of this. And actually, the counter is they have more opportunity, right? They have opportunities to get better services because you're removing these restrictive laws. So.
Don't you have to be careful about saying profits over patients, because it's not profits, they're rents, right? And so it's really saying special interests, protecting, profit. I don't want to make profit bad guy, because really what profit and competition does is improve the quality. So you don't want to win this little battle and lose the long-term thing by making profit an enemy. I think it's really careful of that.
I hear what you're saying. And I think some of this can be nuanced, and it depends on what audience you're talking to. I think for con, there's a big gap in public knowledge. And so in general, when they hear like hospitals, which are very trusted people, say, oh gosh, we're going to have to shut down hospitals, people are going to die. There's a little bit of a calling out there. So like if you're talking to a legislator and you're talking to I think you do have to get more nuance, because we're all free market. We don't want to make profit the enemy, but at the same time, it's kind of highlighting this fact that hospitals are in fact overstating a lot of this, and that actually the data is on the side of the other side. So, that can be nuanced. We wanted to have a very simplified message, right? Because sometimes, like, gosh, if I ask most people on the street what is con, right, they go back to that, Star Trek or Jack Abramoff, right? But so there's a high education needed, and I think that message has to be simple, or you get too much in the weeds. And I think generally the right, we do that. We automatically go into the nuances instead of some of that top level message.
And that's what I hope that we'll be able to do this afternoon during the open session, which will be like a working session where everybody will have input, and we'll be able to develop some ideas about messaging and get on a single page if we can. So I'm gonna move on. Thank you, Kathleen. That was great.